Okay, so let's open it up with a word of prayer, and then we'll go straight into what has been burning questions that you might have from last week. Father, thank you again for the ability to come together here just to learn Greek. Some might see that as being a very odd thing to do, but it is out of a desire to know you better. It's out of a desire to know your word better. I pray that you will give us strength, give us endurance, and give us understanding as we seek to master this thing called Greek grammar. Amen. So, do you have any questions about last week's first lesson, the alphabet?
Is there a reason why, like theos and theon, is masculine and feminine? Is there a reason why it goes back and forth?
Where did you see that theon was feminine?
I have an app on my phone, and it goes through the words and then gives you the meaning of it.
Okay, I would like to see that.
Really? Okay,
because,
after. I'll stick in the
because there is a significance here, and we're jumping ahead. Don't get too scared. This was what I was talking about with the iota subscripts. You have theos, theou, theo, nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, theon, and then the. This is a good segue into what we're going to be talking about with an overview of the Greek system. This is a noun, right? We've learned that it means God. Here's what's going to freak you out a little bit. Unless you've had Latin, for instance, or even German. Nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and vocative. Your base word is the. And then on top of the, you have endings that are being added. These are your masculine singular endings, or your second declension. This simply means God. This means of God. This means to God. This means God as the recipient of the action of the subject. And this means God. So that's not a difference between masculine and feminine. That's why I like to see the app, is because this is all a masculine noun. It's the difference between the nominative and the accusative. In the nominative, it's doing the action. In the accusative, it's receiving the action. So if you didn't get that, we will get there in a bit. Anything else? It's a very, very good observation that the noun is changing in a way that we might not expect it to in English. Word order dictates the way that we construct English sentences. James hit the ball. James is the subject or the nominative. The ball is the accusative. In Greek, you can say the ball hit James, but have it in these cases, and it still mean James hit the ball. It's what we call inflection. As the answer to your first extra credit question. Any other questions? So I know that I did not cover accents very well, but that was, as we already just said, because it just indicates where the stress of the word is. I don't want you to get too overwhelmed with accents as we start. Okay, if you don't have any other questions, I'd like to sing the alphabet song with you again. And by that I mean let this video sing it for you as I sing along. Ready? Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, psi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, keep, psi, omega. Yes?
PHR.
Yes.
Pronounce.
Phi.
Yeah.
Phi.
Okay, feet.
Here's your ki.
Key, yeah, that I knew.
Here is your xi, xi, like a KS. And here is your psi. Those are all they sound very, very similar. It sounds like you guys got the alphabet down pretty well for the most part. You've been singing a lot, I can tell. So the next little test would be to see how your pronunciation is. Do I have a volunteer? You? All right, go ahead, down. You know what I'm going to ask you to do?
No.
Oh, you sure you want to volunteer for this then? The volunteer, I would like to read John 1:1-5. So I asked, I mentioned this at the end of class, and I also provided you guys with a pronunciation guide on the website that actually had me pronounce this for you. So if I don't have anybody offer to do the whole thing, we can split it up into parts as well, so that would work.
Start.
All right, go for it.
Aim. Okay.
Good.
Aim. Ho.
Ha.
Ha. Logos.
Good.
Kai. Ha. Logos. Aim. Pros. Tom. Theon. Kai. Theos. Aim. Ha. Logos.
Very good. Somebody else for the next verse?
Susan.
Go ahead. And then we'll come to you.
Utos ain in arche proston theon.
Good. I'm not sure if it was me hearing hutas. There is a rough breathing mark underneath that little circumflex. As small as it is, I know. And part of this is that I've come accustomed to knowing which words are there, so I don't even look at the rough breathing mark because I know which breathing mark is going to be there. Okay?
Pretty sneaky, just picking it from the second letter of the diphthong.
Yep. That's where it's going to be underneath the diphthongs. With your diphthongs, the accent is going to come
On the
on the
second
second letter.
Okay.
Sheila?
Anta de Anto
Altu?
Egenito Kai Chorus Altu Egenito Buddha. Hey.
Good.
I'll do it.
Sure. That's good.
Paginanen and Otto, Zoe and Kai Tezoe, Enta, Thos,
Fos?
Tone, Anthropon.
Good. One minor thing, the second word there, giganim. Good, very good.
Giganin. So the accent is on the E, but it sounds heavier on the
Geganim.
Geganin.
Geganim. Yeah, Geganim. So the accent is up at the first one, and I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation myself. Do it one more time.
Geganin?
That works, yeah.
Okay.
Last. All right, I'll do it. Kai Taphos, Inte Skatia, Fine, Kai He Skatia, Alta, U Katalavan.
You pronounced it too, Scotty.
Yeah, I did. I realized that the accent was on the last syllable there on the second one. So not Scatia, it's Scatia.
Is it spelled differently? The first time it has that little thing under the A, the alpha. The second time it doesn't. Little iota, is that?
It is. This is getting into the same thing we're talking about here.
Okay.
Scatia is feminine as opposed to masculine, and it's the difference between the nominative and the dative. So the first one is in the light, and the light shines in the darkness. In the darkness is part of a prepositional phrase, and the next one it becomes a subject, and the darkness cast or did not receive it. Okay. Any other questions about that? Not there yet?
So the Greek has feminine and masculine too?
And neuter. They'll be much easier than some other languages, though. It's very formulaic, and it's very similar between them. So we'll get there. Don't worry too much. We've got some easier ways to memorize the paradigms for the declensions. All right, moving on to lesson 2. Normally, as you look through the syllabus or the schedule, we're not going to do 2 lessons at a time. But this week we're doing 2 lessons only because there's nothing for you to memorize in lesson 2. If you guys read over it, you would see that, but I'm going to go through some of the things I want to highlight, and you can ask any questions about it as well. And then we'll move to lesson 3. So we've already sort of hit on this. Greek is an inflected language. That means that your nouns are going to go into different cases in order to indicate how they function within a sentence. And your verbs are also going to be somewhat dissimilar to your English verbs. So your English verb have is pretty easy to remember as you go through your conjugation because you have I have, you have, he, she, or it. Now here's the one little anomaly in English. Has, we have, you have, and they have. So in order to know exactly who the subject is in these sentences, you have to have an external pronoun, right? With the exception of this one, and even here you still have it in English. You can't just say has and know that it's he, she, or it. You could know it, but it's not what we do. It's not how we pronounce it. In Greek, on the other hand, in order to say I have, this is without the accents. It's echo. You have is ekes. He, she, it is eke. We is ekamen. You is ekete. And they have is ekusen. Now with one word, I have expressed everything that is expressed in 2 words here. I've actually expressed a lot more than just what you see here because this is your present, active, indicative, first person singular. But what I want you to see here is that when we conjugate a verb, or when we bring together, as conjugate means, is we're uniting certain elements that indicate to us certain things about the verb. In this particular instance, we've united what are called person number endings that tell us what person and number does the action. Does that make sense? Okay. So Greek can become very economical. Not nearly as economical as Hebrew, but that's neither here nor there. Good. No questions about that?
Is the same you have and you have?
It is. In some languages, you have the distinction between a formal you, a singular you, and a plural you. But you do have the distinction between the singular and the plural. But in English, this would be the equivalent of you all,
Yeah.
or y'all,
Uh-huh.
even though we wouldn't ever say that. Well, we would. We very much say that. And we'll get more specifically into this in chapter 3. So the next thing you have is also mood. And that's not the sort of painful feeling you get in your gut when somebody tells you you're going to study Greek. This is an overview, so again, don't get too freaked out. Greek has 5 moods. The indicative mood, the imperative mood, the subjunctive, the infinitive, and the optative. In the indicative mood, it is a statement that claims to represent reality. This is the only one you really need to focus on at the moment. I'll define the other ones for you, but we'll be looking at the indicative for the entirety of this class. We won't get into the subjunctive, the imperative, or the optative. We will look at the infinitive, though. So we just need to worry about the indicative. So the indicative is a statement about reality. That doesn't mean that lies cannot be told within the indicative mood. You don't have to go into another mood to tell a lie. That would be somewhat defeating of the purpose, right? We have a specific mood labeled lie mood. Wouldn't be very effective, right? So he went to the store can both be a lie or it could be an accurate representation of reality. So all we're looking at in the indicative is a statement about reality. For the most part, I'm speaking in the indicative mood in this class. I'm telling you how Greek is. The imperative, you know these, make your bed. The subjunctive expresses contingency, like so that, in order that, though. Those kinds of concepts are represented in Greek in the subjunctive mood. The infinitive mood, it's not limited by person or number. So we saw how all of these are limited by person and number, right? Echo is I have. In a lot of the languages, you actually learn the infinitive mood, or the infinitive form of the verb, as your lexical form or your vocabulary form, right? I think French is that way. I think a couple of others are that way. To have. In Greek, that would be ekein. To have. So an example of this in English would be to eat is a good thing. It's unbound by person or number. It's unbound by I, you, he, she, or it. That's not to say that it can't take those things as well, but that's later. Questions? No. The optative, and this really is not very important, even in the long run. The optative is on its way out in Hellenistic Greek. It was used a lot more in classical Greek, but you'll come across it a couple of times here and there. It's a polite request, like, may the Lord have mercy on his soul. Questions about mood? Voice, this is very easy. There's active, middle, and passive in the Greek. Active is where the subject does the action. James hit the ball. James is the subject. He is the one that is hitting the ball. And the passive, it would be James, what? Was hit by the ball, right? So James is the subject, but the action is being done to him. He is being hit by the ball. The middle is somewhat odd for English speakers because we don't typically say that we do something for ourselves. The best illustrations for this are usually like in terms of hygienics, or hygiene rather. James washed himself. So James washed. The implied subject and object of washing is himself.
Okay.
Although the subject is not implied, that would be clarified. James is the subject, but he is the one who's implied as washing himself. In terms of voice, so far we've had the indicative mood that you're going to need to know. You don't need to worry about the other ones right now. We're just giving you an overview. The active voice is the one that's going to be important for us in the coming lesson. You don't have to worry about the others. They'll come with time.
So we're doing C spot run, right, kind of stuff?
Yes. Yep, and you'll be able to do that very soon. The next little concept is more difficult for us. We express time primarily in our tenses. The primary thing that is expressed in a Greek tense is not time, it is aspect or kind of action. So you've got 3 different kinds of action in the Greek tenses. We won't go into all of the tenses because there are 6, I believe. You've got your present, future, imperfect, aorist, perfect, pluperfect, and then you have your future perfect, 7. You have imperfect aspect, and that means that it's a progressive or durative sort of idea. He was running, as opposed to he ran, or he runs, rather. Perfective aspect is a state or a condition resulting from completed action. So it's looking at the state or the condition of that action. And the aorist has completed action, but it looks at it as a whole, with no respect to time. Yes?
Is that the one that they say, if you're talking about something being continuous, it's the aorist?
Not continuous. The present tense would be continuative or imperfect, and the imperfect tense would be. So, I was running. The aorist is the one that, you preachers might say, this is a action that is being looked at from a bird's eye sort of view.
Okay.
And the perfective aspect would probably be the one that, I know I preach this, tetelestai is the word for it is finished. That's a perfect verb that has completion in the past, but it has ongoing sort of implications.
Okay.
So. That's very heady, I know. Bird's eye view, again.
Okay.
But if you have questions about it, feel free to ask them. In terms of tense, we're going to be concerned about the present and the future. For now.
The Bible is, those are the things that are mostly there, or?
Those are just the ones that we're going to be covering sooner
Okay.
rather than later. I want to give you an idea of what the Greek verb system looks like, but I also don't want you to be overwhelmed with everything that's there. So that's why I'm putting these out to the side to say these are the ones we'll concentrate on. Okay. That was chapter 2. That's all that was there. Reread it. That'll give you an idea. We will continue to go back to this as we revisit new verbs. But for now, like I said, I want you to get that general concept, and I want you to also not be overwhelmed by it. And we'll take a quick break. I know I didn't give you guys one last week, but we'll take a 5-minute break before we get into the meat of this week, which is lecture 3, or lesson 3. All right. Page 17, present and future active indicative. That sounds like a lot, doesn't it?
Take another break.
A little overwhelming.
Sounds like I'm back in Latin.
Well,
Flashback to the 60s here, guys.
it's very similar to Latin, actually.
Yeah.
Don't let it scare you too much, because every time I teach from a different grammar, they always separate the present from the future. And I wish they put it together for this reason alone. The present and the future are so similar, it just has one letter change, that it would make you feel so much better about how far you've gone or how much progress you've made in the language if you knocked out 2 at once, because they're the exact same, with the exception of that one letter. So I think it's a great thing that he's put them together, because now you get to come away and say, now I know the future active indicative and the present active indicative. First little section there, paragraph 18, talks about primary active suffixes. One thing you need to know about Greek is there are 2 sets of person number as in I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they, suffixes. 2 primary sets, primary and secondary actives. If you know that and know where those get applied to the tenses, it will make your job in learning the language so much easier. We're going to take what's called a morphological approach in learning your verbs and everything else. That means that you're not going to have to memorize each set of endings by rote. You memorize your sets of endings and know how they get combined with your stem verb, and you can just produce. You can just both produce it and dissect it and find out where it belongs, what tense, mood, voice, etc. it is. So what we'll be learning first here is your primary active endings. Turn the page to page 18. First singular is O. Second singular, ace. Third singular, a. First plural is min. Second plural, te. And third plural is usin. Usi or sin. You'll see it in both forms. This is what we call a movable nu, and it appears or it doesn't appear at will. Some grammarians say that it appears in order to avoid what's called hiatus. You have this in French as well, to where you put a consonant at the end of the word in order to blend with the vowel of the next word. So you don't have 2 vowels, one ending, one beginning. But that's not done with any semblance of consistency within the New Testament. That's one way of explaining it, that it's to avoid that hiatus. But you're not going to see it, like I said, with consistent like. So you can use that as an explanation, or you cannot, either way. O, ace, a, min, te, usen. This means I, you, he, she, or it, we, you, they. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. So repeat with me. This is going to be a lot like the alphabet from last week. We're going to keep on hitting it. O,
Oh.
ace,
Ace.
A, min,
Min.
te,
Te.
usen,
Usen.
O,
Oh.
ace,
Ace.
A, min, te, usen, O, ace, 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 A, min, te, usen. Just keep on doing that when you go from here tonight. Memorize it. O, ace, A, min, te, usen. Just sound it off as a cadence. If you get that order right, create this chart in your mind so that you know that the first singular, second singular, third singular goes on the left-hand side, first plural, second plural, third plural goes on the right-hand side, and you can just always say aminet to usen, O, ace, A, min, te, usen. You can go through there and write them out. Or you can say it very quickly in your mind and identify where it is in the chart in order to produce the translation. O, ace, A, min, te, usen. O, ace, A, min, te, usen. Good.
And you add these to verbs like you do in Latin.
You do. And we will get there very, very quickly, probably too quickly for your comfort. At the bottom of page 18, you'll see a chart there. These are your paradigms, or what called our paradigms, and your list out of how each one of these verbs is conjugated. The present active indicative and the future active indicative. That will be helpful for you as a reference. Hopefully I will teach this to you though in such a way as you won't need that reference. So look at it now, but then we are going to take a few verbs and learn how to dissect them. We'll start with luo because it's the easiest and it's what all of your paradigms or your conjugations will be based on. We have luo. So that it's not abstract to you as just three little letters. Luo means I loosen or I destroy. And that nuance is very important because in some instances it will mean I destroy, but when John says that Jesus is, I'm so unworthy to even loosen his sandals. So he's not destroying his sandals, he's loosening. Luo. We've already seen that the O, always A, amineta usen, is your first singular ending. So we will learn your forms in the first singular, present active indicative in your vocabulary. If you're to look them up in a dictionary, you will find it under luo. But when we're conjugating, we need to find the stem of the verb. And that's going to be lu. The way you find the stem of your verb is you just subtract the omega. Later on we will learn what are called me verbs. You'll take off the me. But for now, we are only learning omega verbs. So you take off your omega, and that's your root, lu. Now, when we form our paradigms, we'll have our first singular here, our second singular here, our third singular here. First plural, second plural, third plural. Now, if I were to ask you, which I probably won't ever do, but if I were to ask you to create or to conjugate a verb for me, you can lay this out right here, and then just take Lou and fill it in all of these places. That is your stem.
That's consistent across the board.
There are very few verbs that take a different sort of form in one of its conjugations,
But pretty much.
for the most part. It's called a second aorist verb, and things get a little bit funky in there. Don't worry about that for now. Now we've got Lou in each one of those places. You're halfway there. All you need now are your suffixes. Lou, O. Lou,
Nice.
ace.
Ace.
Lou,
A,
a. Lou, ooh, yep. We've got a little bit of a thing here. When I learned Greek, we learned it as part of the suffix, just to reduce some of the confusion, but it created confusion later on, so he wants you to learn it as the person number suffix as it actually is. In front of words that have a mu or a nu, you have a vowel cushion. It's a neutral morpheme. It means nothing. That's what I mean by neutral. But it's an omicron before mu or nu. So we have luamen. In front of a tau, though, not a, yes. You have an epsilon. So it's luete.
So can you explain the vowel cut, I mean the cushion again?
If you look at
Page 19.
page 18, right underneath the second chart there, in addition, Greek adds a vowel before the suffixes min and te. This vowel, known as a connecting vowel, functions as a phonological cushion between the verb stem and the suffix. The connecting vowel is omicron before mu and nu, and epsilon before all other letters. The connecting vowel is sometimes called a neutral morpheme, since it is added solely for the sake of pronunciation and does not affect meaning. And then finally, the third plural, we have lu, usen.
It's because he said, well, vowel, both, so it makes more sense.
What now?
To add that is because there are two vowels and, no?
No extra.
It's just a thing of the
For
ear.
the-
Yeah, because there are some conjugations, which is why it's important to just know this as a cushion here, that drop it. They don't have the connecting vowel, and it's important to know when the connecting vowel is there versus when it is not later on. Yes?
Only in this verb, only
No, for all of them.
for all of them.
That's why when I learned it, some of the grammarians will have you include it in the person number suffixes.
Oh, okay.
So right now I'm telling you to learn it o, ace, a, min, tes, usen. Some of them have you learn it o, ace, a, amen, eta, usen. Because it's going to get applied to all of your verbs,
Okay.
except in some conjugations later on. If it helps you, you are welcome to pronounce it o, ace, a, amen, eta, usen, and then you can just apply the whole thing. But when I start to do things like this, because I will, I'm going to ask you when we get later on, when we start to add verbs and voices to it, and moods to everything, it's going to be easier to break verbs apart like I kind of have in the writing as it is. So I'm going to ask you to break apart luo. I'm going to ask you, what part is this? The stem,
Yeah.
right? What part is this? Yep, which suffix?
First singular.
Yep, first singular suffix. Person number suffix is the technical, is the vocabulary that he uses in the book. Person number suffix. When we go over here, this is stem. This is
The vowel cushion.
vowel cushion or neutral morpheme. A morpheme is simply a letter that communicates meaning. In this instance, it communicates no meaning. And then this is your person number morpheme or ending suffix. Any of those terms will work.
Okay, good.
I'm trying to-
Because vowel cushion means something to me, I can think of it. A neutral morpheme.
Doesn't. I understand that. The only reason I use that terminology is because he's going to use it throughout the book, and I want to clarify that up front.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, a morpheme, and I know I didn't cover this in the first lesson, so if you go back and read that, that might shed a little bit of meaning on it. A morpheme is a letter or a group of letters that communicate some sort of meaning. So we have the word cat, that's a morpheme. But if we add
Walk.
an S,
Yeah.
then this is a communicative element in English, right? It communicates what?
Plural.
Plurality. Good, so it's plural. Now if I say love, that's a morpheme. It means, well, you know what it means. But if I add D, so the ED suffix is a morpheme that communicates what? Past tense. So that's a morpheme.
Yeah.
So he's going to call this a neutral morpheme. It makes more sense to call it a vowel cushion, but when we see the words morpheme, don't get confused by it. So we did luo.
Bonus is we're learning a lot about English.
But now,
The bonus is we're learning a lot about English.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've tutored a good number of students just because that was one of my jobs at Moody. And I found that the first thing that I did was communicate what an English sentence structure looks like. And that was fundamentally the issue that a lot of students were having, is not an understanding of how English operates and how that translates into how Greek operates. So,
This doesn't mean we're gonna diagram sentences in Greek, does it?
no. Now there is an entire branch of study that does diagram
Oh,
sentences
no.
in Greek, but I'm not expecting that of you. But knowing how Greek works might actually teach you how English works as well and allow you to diagram English sentences in a way that you were never able to before. So blepo means I see.
And just so I can keep that in my brain, are there any English variants on blepo?
English variants on blepo. He
Is there any?
has, no, not on that one. It'll come.
Okay.
It'll be one of the easier ones. So, blepo, what is the stem of blepo?
What?
Good, blep.
I blept, you blept. Yeah.
Now, what do I do with this?
Is that the first?
I start writing it down 6 times.
Yes. All right, good.
Jesus flow.
So we start with blep, all right? Blep, blep, blep. If you want to pronounce it wrong, you might be able to come up with some way to memorize this, like I see a blip on the screen. I don't know if that helps. I know some students that helps a lot when you do that, but it's blepo. Now that I've done that, what do I do?
You add the O,
Good. Blepo.
add the EIS,
Good.
then the EI,
Good.
then the, now do you need, you may need to put an Omicron in there to do,
Good.
MEN.
Good.
And again, the O, T, E, or not.
So the Omicron is before a mu or a nu,
Okay,
and
and then there's another thing in there.
epsilon before anything else.
Right.
Lepete.
And the last one is, the Omicron, epsilon, and the thing, the O, the thing that looks like an O with a little
Sigma.
sigma.
Yeah. And iota. So Usa. Blepo. Say it with me. Blepo. Blepes. Blepe. Blebomen. Amen.
Amen.
Blepete. Blepusen. Starting to get a little bit of a hang of it?
Mhm.
We can do this all day long with all of the verbs. So we'll do it with grapho as well. Any guesses at what grapho means?
Right.
Good.
What did blep mean?
C.
See.
I
Blepo.
see you.
I
I
see.
blep you.
Or blepo. You see.
Lepo.
Sounds like something I should threaten my kids with.
Oh, you. Yeah, I know.
Do you want me to blap
You
you?
can have a lot of fun with blep, can't you? People think you're cussing at them.
Grapho means.
Right.
All right. Okay, so what do I do with this? I want to conjugate.
Curtis, I'm reading his group.
Now, it's I right because the first person singular
Yeah.
before the root is taken out.
What now?
It's I right because of
Mm-hmm.
the,
Yeah. In Greek, we start off with, we learn the first person singular of a verb. If I were to learn the infinitive of it, which we do in some other languages, this would be graphein. To write. Grapho, so what do we do with this again?
You write that down 6 times.
What do we write?
The gamma,
Gamma.
rho, alpha,
That's a gamma.
theta,
Phi. Mm-hmm.
phi.
Grapho, so you write down graph 6 times. You will at some point learn like chicken scratch. And I know that that's hard for you since you just now learned to.
Were you talking
Yeah, I
to
just
me
got broken
because I
running my
just
head
cannot
so
figure out what.
All right, so graph, and then what do we do with the first singular?
You add the omega.
Good. O,
You add ace,
ace, great,
A,
great, A,
almond,
almond, excellent,
ete,
good,
usa.
usen, very good. So O, ace, A, amen, ete, usen, or min, te, usen.
So far, all the verbs you've given us end in an omega.
And they will be that way for a very long time.
Oh, that's nice.
With the, well, I say that, but in this lesson you will learn one verb that is a me verb. All languages have which verb to be irregular.
To be.
Yeah.
To be.
And Greek is no different. A me. You'll only learn a me, a, estin, esmin. Oh goodness, I'm gonna embarrass myself. Esmin. Ete? Nah, este. Este
Well, I'm glad you forget to.
and asin. So this will be somewhat irregular, but you can even see parallels, right? With this side at least. Min, te, sin. But other than the to be verb, most of the verbs you'll learn to begin with are omega verbs. Very rigid, very structured language. Great for you. What does this mean?
All right. All right.
Y'all right. Good.
So
You
We-
right.
you're right.
Eat right.
They,
They,
he, she, it, right.
He, she, it, right. Or they right.
They, right.
All right, so we've pretty much, well, I can believe that up there, got the present active indicative, right? Somewhat.
Is that the easy one?
The future is easy as well. The only difficult thing about the future is that we have some consonants that are interfering with one another. So let's take luo first, so that you don't have to deal with that. So we start by doing what?
Take the stem,
Yep.
blue,
Lu. And then we do what with it?
you write it down 6 times.
Good. So now you don't know what to do with it because we haven't covered this yet. To form the future, you need one simple little letter.
Sigma.
Sigma.
Lowercase sigma F.
is it not final signal?
Yeah, well, it's not final.
Well,
Isn't that the
so
other
far,
It's in the middle of the word.
it's in the middle of the word, we just haven't finished it yet. Because we've got, what is this called again?
Stem.
The stem. This is now called the, take a guess at it,
Future tense.
future time morpheme, if you want to get real technical, but the future indicator.
I will loosen. I will
Mhm.
loosen.
Yeah. And now we need what?
An omega.
We need an omega specifically for this, but it's called, in general,
Suffix.
suffix, the person number suffix. Yeah.
Some number seven.
So lu, so, lu,
Space.
seis, lu,
Say.
se, lu,
Some.
some,
Solomon.
lu,
And,
Sete.
sete,
Sete.
and,
lu, susan.
That's just a-
It's a little bit of a mouthful on that one, lu, susan.
Great.
So, we have our stem, our future time morpheme. With this, you have your cushion, and then your person number suffix. If those terms don't sit too well with you at the moment, just remember OASE, Amineta Usen, and then
It's easy
just
for
add
me to
your
say.
sigma. What now?
I said it's easy for you to say.
That comes with a lot of in the head. Translate?
That will be you will loosen.
Good,
We will listen.
good,
He will lose.
Loose.
very good. You've already learned your first 2 tenses in Greek.
Can you write over the third person plural in blue? I cannot even see that.
Yeah, the red is kind of dying.
And that's the one I'm having the most trouble with anyway. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Susan.
Susan. I'll give you a moment to write down.
So far, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
There'll be some elements, it'll get a little bad.
This is the
but-
wall before the trash bridge.
No. Okay, Greek is very easy. I say that
Compared to.
to most languages. Greek is easy compared to English. If you think about all of the irregularities in English, you make a plural form of a word in like 10 different ways.
Yeah.
It's torturous.
I know, it's so
barbarous.
parochial for me to say English is normal.
Yeah, exactly. But Greek is very rich. It's very systematic. It's very mathematical. You add certain pieces in order to get to the form of the verb that you need or the form of the noun, etc. that you need. The problem with Greek is that there's a lot. It's an inflected language. You'll have 16 forms of one word, which is your article. That's intimidating. But just like the person number suffixes can be applied to every single one of the Greek verbs, so also your declensions will be applied to each one of your Greek nouns or adjectives. If you get the stuff down to begin with, everything else builds upon what you've already learned, which is where the difficulty in Greek comes. If you fall behind, my Greek professor used to say, the train's left the station, and if you're not on it, well, you're back in the station. It's moving ahead, and it's barreling forward. I'm going to try my very best. That's why I'm putting the videos up online. I want each and every person to stay in here. It's also why I've built in a review day after every 3 lessons or something like that, so we can go over what we've already covered. Greek gets difficult and sticky in a couple of places, but if you learn the basics that we're learning now, and if you learn the basics upon everything else is built, then you'll have a good time in Greek. It'll be very simple. Like I said, you've already learned 2 tenses. Not many languages you can say that for. And I say that, and I'm about to take a little bit of it away, because that was a normal future verb. All of these verbs that we're going to cover are normal as well. They just follow very simple rules once you learn those rules. So we have blepo. Let's take blepo, for instance. Blepo means to see.
Present, now, and future.
See,
And we do what with blepo?
Take the stem.
Take the stem, which is
Blah.
good. And then we're going to repeat it. Now this is going to become a little bit of a problem when we repeat this specific stem. Just a little bit of one. Because it's a P sigma. Good. Who said that? Very good. You either read the book or you are very intuitive. The Greeks don't like that sound together. So when we have a P and a sigma come together, now we're adding this future sigma, right? We'll go ahead and do that just for giggles. The P and the sigma combine to psi, right? That was easy.
Yes,
Why was that easy?
because we know that alphabet letter.
Yeah, so we've got, not that at all. We have a P. Yeah, that was the English form, which is the Greek form. I kind of lost what I was doing right there.
Bro.
So P and an S, or a sigma, which looks like which letter? C.
Yes.
So now, the sigma and the P undergo a change. And all becomes C.
Sure.
And then we do what?
Start pasting on the
Try
other.
to pronounce it.
Well, we paste on the person numbers.
There you go.
So, blipsay.
Good, ellipses.
Blipsay.
Good.
Blips.
Flipsomen.
Blipsama. Blipsay.
Good.
Blipsunen.
Blipsusen. So pronouncing blepso, blepses, blepse, blepsomen, blepsete, blepsete, and very good. Questions about that?
Say the last one again.
Blepsusen.
Blepsusen.
I see Zeus.
Blepsusen. So this is, blepso
She's
is
got a little red on it.
I will see. Blepses is you will see. Blepse is he, she, it will see. Blepsamen is we will see. Blepseta, you will see, or y'all will see. Blepsusen, they will see. You're starting to recover. I know. Look on page 19. So we've now seen that the P and the sigma combine to be a C. But if you look down at the bottom there, you'll see that the P, the beta, and the phi.
What about those?
Those all combine with a sigma to equal the C. The b, p, f sound are very similar to one another. And when they meet a sigma, they will all become your C. So let's take that out of the abstract and find a word that has some of those in there. No, I'm not seeing any yet. So we'll just leave that as an abstract rule. Ago, Akuo, Baptizo, Grapho. Okay, Grapho. That's right. So we solved Lepo. And it'll come as no surprise to you that what we're going to do here with Grapho is exactly the same as we just did with Lepo. But repetition works good for our minds, right?
Yes.
Grapho. So what do we do with Grapho?
Take the sin.
Which is? Graph. Good. And now we're going to, just for the sake of it, for old time's sake, I guess you'd say, is graph. And this pen is dying too. Graph. By the time I get done with this, I don't think that I'm going to have a pen to distinguish things from. And it's gone. Now what do we do?
You replace the P and the sigma with.
We will, but let's go through the steps so that we can get used to that first. We're jumping right on ahead, and that's great. But
What's the pitchfork?
so we want to make this future. We add what?
Sigma.
Good. Those are plus marks.
Okay.
Sigma. Now we have a phi and a sigma. And a phi falls underneath this rule of P, beta, and phi.
Get a C.
Good. So we get a C. And we'll erase all of that. Much like math proofs, you don't have to go through all of this in your own conjugations, but we're doing this so you have a visualization of it. Drops. Drops. And then what do we do?
And you have the omega, and the ace, and the A, and the almond,
Mm-hmm.
and the ether,
Mm-hmm.
and the usa.
Good. Gropso. Grops.
Oh.
Gropso. Gropses. Gropse. Gropsamen. Gropseta. Gropsusen. Gropso. Gropses. Gropse. Grap samen, grap sette, grap sus. And this means
I will write. Oh, you.
You
write.
good.
We will.
We will write.
And this means
No, you write.
good. You're right.
Present.
Or you are right. Good. I don't have an example with a beta. I'm always getting that confused with the Hebrew, I'm sorry. So we'll skip that example and we'll move on to the next set of rules. How are we feeling? Are we getting a little more comfortable with these endings and the tenses?
Yeah.
I know we're not there yet, but we're doing it over and over and over in class, and I hope that that helps to eliminate some of the time that you have to spend at home.
Jacob?
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you. They work?
Yep, there's also a yellow, but I didn't check that.
Nah, yellow won't come up. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you very much. All right, let us find the next word. So, we'll start with Aga. Here we have Aga. This is one of your vocabulary words, and it means I lead. I think he has a little thing, agent there, and agent leads. What do we do with this?
Pick the stem.
Which is?
Alpha, gamma.
Good. Alpha, gamma. Then we do what with it?
Write it down 6 times.
And we want to make this future, right? So what are we going to do?
Add a sigma.
Add a sigma. And then what are we going to do?
Add the
Without looking.
ugly.
We're gonna have, this is gonna undergo a change. Do you know any letter that this looks like? We're getting into a little bit of a linguistic or a phonological categories here. So a g makes a similar sound as a k,
Yes.
right? And a k and a s make what sound? C,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with a k. The k makes a very similar sound as the ki.
Okay.
So those 3 plus a sigma equal a
Xi. A C. I'm trying to do this based on sound so that you can see it or hear it rather. But if that doesn't work for you, if just memorizing the rules, alpha, beta, and a P all combine to make a C, not alpha, I'm sorry, beta, phi, and P all combine to make your C. That's a rule. Chi, kappa, gamma combine to make a C with a sigma. That's a rule. Do it that way if it works. If it works to make the sound and recognize that those sounds combine to make that letter, then that helps as well. So we've done that. Now we can go ahead and erase. And this is why this particular word will be annoying and frustrating for you. so far as our visual is concerned, only one letter remains, right? The aga. I mean the ah. But the gamma and the sigma have combined and equal your C. You will have to think through this one. You will see it like that, and you'll have to say, X. That's right. Now what do we do?
We have the
And
Indians.
Which are?
Omega, ace, A, hecta, and
Now translate.
he or she will lead.
Good.
They,
Y'all won't leave.
Y'all will lead.
oh, you will.
Mhm. Pronouncing, we have oxo, oxace, oxe, oxamen, oxete, oxusa. Oxo, oxace, oxe, oxamen, oxete, oxusa.
Susa, Sus,
Susan.
Susan, and
Yep, Susan.
Susan.
And this can always disappear. So it could be oxusit or Susi.
Dr. Sousa, or Sousa marches.
Questions there?
You just have to drill this, don't you?
You need to drill the rules. That's what I want you to do. I don't want you to go through here and write out all the conjugations like I'm doing. Drill the rules, because when you get the rules, you'll be able to backtrack. You'll be able to, this is why I've been doing drilling this. When I give you the word, or when you see the word in your translation, or in your Greek text, oxusin. I want you to be able, based upon the way that we're learning this, as little parts to a bigger whole, to say, okay,
future.
yep, you can do that. We can just start to break things apart. You can say usa. That's a what? It's a suffix, person, number, suffix, and it's which one? Third plural. Good. Then we can look at this and say, all right, some kind of verb. Good, we've got that.
Future.
This is part of the root. And now I got to find something to do with this C.
So it's one of those three, the key, kappa, or gamma plus sigma.
Right, so then you recall that rule, and then you're able to parse this out and say, oh, that's a gamma. Oh, wait, I know og as a root of ago, which means to lead. But now we've added a sigma here, and the sigma is a sign of the future. And now, based upon backtracking through those rules, we can say, now I know how to translate this. I've got the third plural, which is translated out as a they. Oh, there's the sigma, which means will, and I have the definition of my root word, which is lead. They will lead.
How did you get to the gamma instead of being one of the other three?
You could have gone and said, okay, ak, or ak. And we haven't learned a word that looks like that yet. Matter of fact, I still don't know ones that are strictly like that. There's aku, but then ak is too short. So you would work through those options and find one that you know matches up.
So when we see these suffixes, will they always be verb ending? They won't be some other thing,
These particular suffixes,
pretty much.
I don't want to say never.
Okay.
You will get, there are some of your secondary endings that will have common noun endings. That'll be a little annoying. For the most part, you should be able to distinguish them.
Okay,
The omega ending, remember we pronounced this word at the first class, ego, which means I. It does have that O ending. Don't get too confused. You'll learn your verbs versus your nouns as well. You'll also have, we looked at lago at the beginning of class, but it has that iota subscript, so that should tell you that it's not a verb, it's a noun. And then we'll get into, if we do Greek 2 for some of you, whoever decides to join, when I teach it, you'll get participles, and those are not present in any language at all. It's a combination between a verb and a noun. But we'll be able to sort those out too.
So is there a verb that's stem is just alpha xi?
An alpha xi?
Yeah.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
No. You should be okay there. And since we are very, very quickly winding down on time, I want to give you more and more examples, but I am restricted. So, your kappa, gamma, chi, that's what we just covered, plus a sigma give you the xi. You have another rule here. Last one is on page 20. The tau, delta, theta drop out. So, to give you a visual of this, you have your word patho. Goes to path, so, because you got the future there, but oops, we have a theta before sigma, so it is now path, so. The same happens with the delta and the tau. That little paragraph right underneath this particular rule is quite important, or these rules, because you are going to rack your brain when you see words like que russo. You've got that sigma there, and you're already going to think that it means I will preach, as opposed to just I preach.
Right.
But that is the future form. And then it goes to que ruxo. And the reason it does that is because your true stem, this is one of those rare instances, is not crus. It's cruck, or crook. Or K-root, sorry, K-roos. So now you have, when it goes into the future, the kappa combining with the sigma to become K-rooks. And you can learn it that way, or you can just learn it in the vocabulary the way that he's got it. If you flip over to the next page on the vocabulary, he gives you the present active form and the future active form of each of those verbs. So you can do it by rote. I don't advise it. Or you could do it this way. The same goes with the word baptizo. Baptiz is not the root. Baptid is the true root. So when the delta combines with the sigma, the delta falls out, and it's baptizo. Moving very, very quickly through the rest of the chapter. Make sure you read it carefully on your own. He's got paragraph 21 there, which is more on the person number suffixes. The importance of this is seen when we start adding actual nouns. Right now, we only know verbs, which is going to take us a very long way. It means that full sentences in this lesson you'll be able to translate just by knowing the verbs. But a big sticking point for some students when we move on to nouns is the difference between an external and an internal subject. Because in English, we have external subjects but no internal subjects on the verb. We covered that at the very beginning. This has an intrinsic internal subject being they. And it gets really tricky when you go to the third singular. He, she, or it. And this is he, she, or it will lead. But I can say axe, and I'll go on another line for it. Jesus. Can you guess what Jesus means?
Jesus.
Jesus. Now the natural inclination of the English student is to translate that how?
Jesus.
He leads Jesus. Right? Because we see, wait, there's an internal subject here, and then I've got just this word over here, which naturally is the object of an English word, or sentence structure. This is not he will lead Jesus, it's Jesus will lead. So your external subject further defines and clarifies the internal subject. In general, almost 90% of the time, your external subject will agree in person and number. Person is this, number is that. So Jesus is singular, it's got to be in the third singular as opposed to the third plural. There are some instances like neuter nouns that take singular verbs that are plural because they're seen as a collective whole or a collective group. That's further down the line. But remember that external subjects can further define the internal subject when we get there. Do please read specifically the section on uses of the present and the future. It explains things like I loose versus I am loosing. The holistic sort of view versus the durative or the continuative understanding. I am loosing. We may have to slow down next week because of the AME. I didn't do a very good job of managing the time tonight, but AME is your to be verb, and I wrote it down at the bottom very quickly. Your first singular is AME. Your second singular is A. Your third singular is Esten. Your first plural is Esmen. Your second plural is Este. And your third plural is Asen. It's one of those that you're just going to have to learn. I can recite it for you over and over, and that might help. We can even do that next week. But it's one of those ones you just have to know by sight. Kind of like I am, you are, he, she, it is. We are, you are, they are.
And that's section 23, page 22.
It is. You also have negatives. And I feel as if I should probably make a quick comment on this. You have oo, ook, ooks, and he also talks about may. May is just to negate things outside of the indicative mood, so don't worry about it. You won't see it for a while. We're only working with the indicative mood right now. It's there. Don't bother yourselves too much. Oo, ook, and ooks all mean the exact same thing. It just negates the verb. It takes those different forms depending upon where it comes in a sentence. If a vowel follows, sorry, ook, yeah, I know I wrote something wrong. This is ook. Yes. So it takes this form if a vowel follows, it takes this form if a consonant follows, and it takes the ook form. I'm messing you all up. Let's start again. I'm trying to go very quickly and I'm making mistakes. So oo when a consonant. ook when a vowel with smooth breathing. Ooks when a vowel with rough breathing. You don't have to remember those rules down the road. Just know that it's the same form and it changes based upon what word comes next. The last thing there is parsing. And it just means that you give information like present active indicative for singular. And because of the fact that I've already held you over, if you want to hear me pronounce the vocabulary, I'll have a pronunciation guide on the website, a video. For heuristic devices or learning devices, he also has in parentheses in that vocabulary English words that are derived from Greek words that might help you, like akuo, acoustics. And in terms of your homework, that evil word homework, reread chapter 3 to clear up any loose ends or any bad explanation on my part. Learn the vocabulary. Learn your verb forms. And there are exercises there at the end of the lesson on page 24 through 25 specifically. I'm not going to tell you how many to translate. Translate as many as you need to or want to. Try to get through the first 5 if you can. If you can't, that's fine. But they will help you learn the verb forms and to test how well you know those verb forms. But really what I want you to focus on is reread the chapter for anything that I missed. To learn the vocabulary. Vocabulary is going to help you out so much. If you don't know the vocabulary, you will never learn the language. It's kind of the case with any language. And then learn the verb forms. Oase, amineta, usen. Add the sigma to make it future. Observe the kappa rules, the bait, kappa, how everything changes. Okay?
No.
You don't have to read ahead to the next lesson. Next week we'll cover the next lesson, but the week after that, we're going to do a review. So we're going to take a big hard stop, take a pause, and look at where we're at. And then you'll have 2 more weeks after that to take a break, I think.